purposely invite the rock and roll element into our community?
Well, what's wrong with a little entertainment?
Entertainment is fine, but this... we have lots of big acts that come through here. Ice Capades, Tiny Toons, Kenny G.
Kenny G.
Dr. Bones, Dr. Bones, Dr. Bones.
Good afternoon, this is Dr. Bones Live, and today my special guest is Ed Roman. Ed, welcome to the show.
Thanks, BMB, Brian, Dr. Bones. How are you, sir?
Very well, sir. How about yourself?
I can't complain. I just got off the tractor, so, I'm still vibrant.
Right on. So, first, I want to make mention of that you're from Ontario, which is where I'm living right now and have been for a number of years in London, Ontario. Now, Shelburne, I don't know too much about. So, is it like a smaller community, like a small town, kind of further up north, or?
Yeah, 6,000 people. We're just north of Orangeville, which is more on people's mental map.
Okay,
so it's about 25 minutes north of Orangeville, and we're actually in the township of Melanchthon, and I don't even mention that to most people other than the Postmaster General, because people are like, "Where's Melanchthon?" I don't even know how to spell that.
Yeah.
Say it right. So, and we live at the nexus of two towns. If I put my foot on my lawn, my left foot, and then my right foot is on the road, I'm actually in two different townships. So I always say Shelburne because more people see that than they understand what Melanchthon is. And Melanchthon's such a rolling, sprawling farming community that there isn't really like, hey, this is the center hub of the town.
Right.
We have the town offices, which is off of a main highway. A two-lane highway, but other than that, you wouldn't know you're in Melanchthon unless you saw a sign.
Well, I can say I've only been. I don't think I can say I've ever been up that far. And I know Orangeville, and I've been actually had to pick up a buddy there when his car stalled out on him. But
well, and it's beautiful up here too. We're south of Collingwood. If everybody's been to Collingwood or Passaic Beach, we're kind of in the middle. And if you looked at a map, you drew diagonal from London straight up to Collingwood, you'd have to hit on your way up. So.
Well, right, I know exactly where Collingwood is. So this brings me to my next question. Since it's such a smaller community, how was it for you kind of just starting into music and wanting to grow and go beyond that? Because, it's a lot of times it's hard to kind of get out of that small town area, just not because of things going on, just because a lot of times, you get set in doing what you're doing there. And then there's essentially no need for you to move unless you want to go above and beyond to like a, let's say, bigger city or metropolitan sort of area. So,
that's a great question, Brian, because, I lived in Toronto for the longest time. I lived there for 3 years. I also worked at the University of Toronto in the media department. And then I was also teaching at a school for the longest time, but I was living in Markham and commuting, going kind of back and forth, doing what I was doing, and also I was living in the city for 2 or 3 years. So, I'm always of the opinion that, provided that you have a good staff of people that are working with you, and you don't need many, 2 or 3 at most, you can pretty much make the magic happen from anywhere and create and record and do what you need to do. And then for me, I like having the tentacle effect of being able just to go out and say, hey, I'm going to New York for a week, I'm going to PA for a week, I'm going to Ohio, I'm going to Austin, and being a part of those events that happen in those towns or the gigs that happen in those towns. So for me, it's like I love Canada. I mean, I love the U.S. I'm spending more time in the U.S. over the last year. I've really grown to love people there, and just, Canadians and Americans have these opinions about one another that are really unfounded in much of anything other than, just insanity. Like, well, do you not take, your sled to school with your dogs in the morning? No. And why is not everybody toting a gun when I walk into the streets in Georgia, right? So that all of that, being down there, it dispels those myths. For me personally, it does, just because so many of these people are my friends now, from radio people to people I've worked with down there. So I think you can make it happen from anywhere. I mean, there are hubs for different things. I mean, Vancouver's always been a hub in Canada, Montreal and Toronto and Halifax and Winnipeg. Those are the five core. And the same thing in the United States. You could say, well, there's Austin, there's New York, there's Los Angeles, California, right? That whole thing has that aspect to it. But the difference in American music culture, people that are actually going to events, is that they seem to frequent them more often. Like, it's something that they want to do 2 or 3 nights a week. Or there are events that are happening 4 or 5 nights a week in your local town. In Canada, and even where I am, you're talking about the small town effect. Well, we have Fall Fair. We have Fiddle Fest, which is like a summer festival, like you'd have the Split Rail Festival or any of the other little festivals that kind of happen in towns in and around there. And other than that, that's about it. So it behooves you as an artist to go out and to try to, tap into what those other places are. And you'll start to realize, hey, this is a really nice community. The people here are great. They're really embracing of music and what's happening. So it's I think you can make it happen anywhere. People say, well, you got to go to New York to make it happen. Well, yeah, a lot of people have had amazing things happen in New York, and it's a bustling hub of artisans and companies and agents and stuff like that. But you can get on a phone and make contact with people and make it happen.
Well, and a lot of times too, it's essentially the right place at the right time.
Well, yeah, I mean, so many people will say, well, you played Red Gorilla Music Fest during South by Southwest, and Jimmy Kimmel was shooting a show, and there's the film festival going on, and there's a rodeo happening at the same time, and it's like, well, yeah, it was amazing, but it didn't make I'm now opening up at the Enormo Dome with somebody. I'm just happy to be working. That's the main thing, I think, with any artist out there. It's just like, well, when you're practicing your craft, that's when you feel most fluid. Well, if your juices are flowing, you're connected to your instrument, the band you might be playing with, the audience that you're working with, people that you meet from day to day. It all becomes more of like this. It's not just you're on the road, but it's a new life experience in a way. And I cherish those moments. Just by sometimes you're 30 hours in a van going one way, right? Right.
And it just always a curiosity to me, because it seems more and more. Well, the indie scene, yes, there are a lot of bands and artists coming out of big cities, but there seems to be some smaller ones, maybe not small as 6,000 people, but it seems to be more where the good music come from. And I just always think about that. Just the reason I was asking about small town in particular is because grandparents lived in New Brunswick, in a town called Dalhousie, and there's not much going on there at all. Pretty much either you get out or you're stuck there, because it's major resources shut down. You just go. I'm not going to go techniques about it, but the point being is just curious of what kind of gave you the drive to kind of say, what, I want to go further than this, and which pretty much answered and get into the music. And it's like I said, just interesting to me to see how people get started and what the drive is to start creating and just have fun with it.
Well, and the drive has always been there, I guess. I think any artisan that is connected to their craft, they're connected for a multitude of reasons. For one, the sheer reason that they've spent so much time doing what they're doing. But then some people will say, hey, you're not making $100,000 a year doing what you're doing. Why do you do it? In some cases, you might play for nothing or pay to play.
Right.
And then you start to realize that it's a necessity of the soul. And I think that's what some people don't realize, because art has become, and music specifically, because that's what we're talking about, a commodity on that level. How do we market it? How do we sell it? What's the hook point? But as you so eloquently put that small town effect, the art, the people that are creating new ideas that are a direct result of the big machine and the bell curve. That's where all the new ideas and the fruitful art is really happening. And people, I'm always saying, turn around in your own communities because there's some amazing stuff happening. Even here at our local Legion in town, it's only 5,000 plus people in Shelburne, but still, if a band comes into town, people are there and they're enjoying it. So that's what it's supposed to be about.
And I completely vouch for that because, like I said, right now I'm in London, and just speaking of major hubs, I'll touch on that very, very quickly. I was born and raised in Montreal. I left when I was 17 because my dad got transferred to the U.S. I lived in Michigan for about 6 years. Then I lived in Ottawa, and then I came to London. And I came to London.
That's moving around.
Yeah, mainly I came to London because London's about 2 hours from Michigan driving. So that way, closer to family, closer to friends I established there as well. So it made sense to me at the time. But speaking of local bands, there are some really, really good local bands here. And one I'm heavily involved with. Like, I've interviewed a bunch of times and promote their shows. And a unique sound. And when you get a chance, the band's called Gypsy Ghost.
Gypsy, what is it again?
Gypsy Ghost.
Gypsy Ghost. Okay, yeah. I'll check it out.
A very cool local band. And they say they're kind of defined as pirate music mixed with a bunch of different genres. Like, once you hear it, you'll really get into it. It's pretty cool. And the other band I have for you, go ahead.
I like pirates.
Yeah, the other band I have for you to check out as well. It's another local London band. They're a rock blues band called House of Cards.
House of Cards. Okay, I got that one too.
So
that will do.
Back into you. So I know you've been in the business quite a number of years. Gotten a lot of awards, and we're gonna get to your newest single here in just a second. And you have your new album out, and I'm just kind of curious when you started this album, because it's called Letters from High Altitudes, Latitude. Sorry. Latitude. Sorry, my mistake. Sorry.
It's okay.
So, when you're writing this album, how has it varied from previous stuff you've done? Like, I mean, are you constantly evolving and kind of changing your sound? Because I know you have such an eclectic mix of different genres. That's what makes your music that more interesting.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, I would have to say that there is no method. The only method is trying to keep learning from my own experiences and other things that are going on around me. And that means whether it be the stuff that I'm talking about lyrically or pushing myself musically. And so a melody or a tune that might end up being progressive or jazz-like or something like that, may not be normally in the realm of pop music. But to me, it was pop music. Jazz and composers that wrote 50 years ago, 60 years ago are heralded as icons today, but then they were considered popular. A tune like A Night in Tunisia, it was an instrumental number, but everybody knew it. Same thing with like an Ellington number. I mean, those were popular numbers. So to me, I never try to. Your question is great because I never try to put a method on it. That maybe people like, well, you have to have a method in terms of like, well, your practical way to let the record unfold, and that's just it. I try not to put too much credence into worrying about these songs have to be written for this specific title. So for me, it's like I'm always writing, and eventually, I get the papers out and I start organizing things. And not only that, what happens is I start playing a certain group of these songs off frequently to myself in a band situation at a rehearsal. And I start to realize, and the reason that I'm doing this is because the subject matter emotionally inside of the music, whether it's the melody or the lyric, is connected somehow. And that is what actually then starts to amplify what the title should be. And sometimes the title comes through what the songs are saying, and sometimes it's just through happenstance. With Letters from High Latitudes, a buddy of mine, Mike, who's a producer, an engineer, cuts my records with me. We were going through an antique shop, and there's this old book, and it was like you're drawn to a table because there's old books and it's neat. And I pick it up, and the first thing I see is this Letters from High Latitudes, and I turn the spine and I look, and it's written by